Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to this segment of Coach Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. The recitation today is from Rag Sorat, composition of Bhagat Ravidas Ji. The recitation: Rag Sorat Bani Bhagat Ravidas Ji ki ek oankar Satgur Prasad. जब हम होते तब तू नाही, अब तू ही मैं नाही। अनल अगम जैसे लहर में उड़त, जल केवल जल माही. This is the first verse, and the literal translation reads, when I exist, and the existence is in ego, when I exist, you are not apparent to me. Jab hum hote, tab tu nahi. And now what has happened is, you are all that exists in my consciousness, obviously. Ab tu hi. Now, this sense of I is no more. Main nahi. Anal agam jaise leher mein udat, waves that arise by the force of wind on the surface of the ocean, they are ultimately only water, not separate from the sea. So what Bhagat Ravidas is telling us is that this is the fundamental realization that must dawn upon us, namely that the sense of I, haume, is just like a wave that arises on the surface of consciousness. It creates a separation which is apparent, not real. Guru Nanak calls this the veil of separation, Kurdi Pal. And it is indeed the root of all human suffering, because it leads us to believe that the ego is the fulcrum of all activities. It is that isolating bubble of consciousness. It becomes the subject that turns everything else into an object. And so when it is dominant, it conceals the truth of the self, that ocean of consciousness. But when that truth is realized, the separation dissolves. Now, this separation is not physical, but epistemological, meaning it is mental, it is knowledge. You recognize that my individual identity is not really separate. That's what we will probe further in this Sabad. So the Rahau reads, Madhave kya kahiye pramay aisa, jaisa maniye hoye na taisa rahau. O Madhava, this is an epithet for Krishna, but now is being used for the self. Madhave, beloved, kya kahiye? What can be said? Param aisa, such is the illusion that grips us. What we perceive reality to be, jaisa maniye, reality is not how it is. We perceive reality through the ego, and therefore we distort reality. Hoye na taisa. So the illusion of a separate self distorts reality. It is perplexing, but the fact is that it is a built-in structural defect, if you want to think of it that way, of our psychic structure. Indeed, Gurbani tells us that haume dhirag rog hai. It is a chronic ailment. But part of our design given to us. And the ego defines itself through identification with the things we believe in, our status, our possessions, our grudges, what have you. But what we are being told is that all of this self-concept that we develop is only a mental construct. This perception is based on a false premise, the false premise being that I am a separate entity. I am not. We'll see this further down in the fourth verse. So the second verse after the Rahau, Narpat ek singasan soya, supne bhaya bikhari, achat raj bichurat dukh paya, so gati bhai hamari. So this is an illustration of the human condition. What Bhagat Ravidas is telling us is that we are fundamentally the king, meaning we are the self, the divine spark. But it is as if a king is asleep on his throne. Narpat ek, a king, Singhasan soya, is asleep. And he dreams that he is a beggar, supane bhaya bikhari. And the loss of the kingdom in the dream, that is causing him pain. Achat raj bichrat dukh paya. And so gati bhai hamari, such is the state of our own existence. So we live in a dreamlike world, Maya, and in this dream we experience ourselves to be a beggar, lacking, weak, striving, fearful. And the suffering that we feel comes from being this feeling of separateness from the kingdom, which is our inherent wholeness within. That is still present, but we don't see it. We have just forgotten. And our emotional pain that we experience is the direct result of this misidentification. Another illustration, Raj Bhayang Prasang Jaise Hai, Ab Kach Marm Janaya, Anik Katak Jaise Pool Pare, Ab Kehte Kahan Nayaya. So the story of the rope being mistaken for a snake is repeated here. This is a very common, well-known story in the mystic traditions to explain, to describe how we are mistaken. And the rope is mistaken for a snake because of darkness, lack of light. But the moment there is light, you recognize that actually the snake is just a rope. You misidentified it. Similarly, because we live in ignorance, the darkness of the ego, we mistake the world of appearances to be reality. Here it means we mistake the world of appearances to be permanent in some ways. And then the other example given here is mistaking, not understanding that the different pieces of gold jewelry that you see that appear to be distinct, but in fact are all made of the same substance, gold. But when you realize that it's all just gold, here a symbol for universal consciousness, then the labels of separate pieces become insignificant. It doesn't matter. You realize. And this realization is so profound that it defies language. Once you see the oneness of everything, you can't put it back into the dualistic terms of language. And this realization comes in a flash, sudden flash. You see, the light turns on, and what you mistook for a snake is a rope. That experience is sudden. And yet, when you see the rope, the experience of fear, the thumping of the heart that you feel as a result is real. That is real. So your reactions to the world are real. But the world is appearance, not real. So you're reacting to something that is not real. You need to calm down. In conclusion, Sarbe ek anek hai swami, sab ghat bhogave soi. Keh Ravidas, haath pay nera, sahje hoye sohoi. Keh Ravidas, haath pay nera. Closer than your own hand, your own body. Sarba ek anek hai swami. One reality, the source of everything. Sabghat bhogave soi. It is the experiencer that abides in all hearts and bodies. And this master, this universe is nearer than one's own hands. And whatever happens, happens spontaneously. Sahje hoy sohoi, meaning it arises spontaneously. It is not your thoughts that make it happen. So the divine self lives and acts through all of us. When you realize that it is already within you, life flows spontaneously. So there's one reality which is the source of everything and abides in us as an inner experience, as the experiencer. So this realization for us should be that we are not fragmented, but we constitute a oneness that is held together by this source. We are like nodes in a vast network. We interact with each other, we need each other, we experience each other. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.